Alright there folks, we've done it. This is episode 30 of 30 days basically, and I'm exhausted. I'm not gonna lie folks, this has been an absolute slog to get these videos done, but I've loved it, I really have, and the interaction and everything has been absolutely phenomenal. So thank you very much for sticking with me and enjoying this little bit of a journey with me. As I say, it's been mind-blowing to be fair, and I'm excited. This last one is something a little bit different. It's a bit of a Q&A session really. I've got 3 questions that have been asked, so I'm going to answer them, and I've also got probably 3 or 4 other things that I could have done on videos, but for one reason or another I wasn't able to get set up properly, or things just went wrong. The weather has been against me for a few days as well. It's just been absolutely bucketing down to be fair, but they are things that would warrant a proper episode as well. So I'm hopefully fishing at the end of this week, so by the time you watch this I may have had a cheeky session, I might not, but I've still got to be a bit sensible. But anyway, I will get on to that a little bit later on. So the first question that came in was, does mainline diameter make a massive difference? Now I'm going to answer this as if we were fishing on pole rigs basically, and if you'd have asked me that 18 months to 2 years ago, I'd have said yeah, it makes a massive difference. You've got to go as thin as you dare basically for the venues that you're fishing. But having watched a few underwater videos of how fish react to different rigs and stuff, I don't honestly think it makes a massive difference, and I'm going to back that up now, because on the Matrix YouTube channel, Jamie Hughes did a video in winter where he was set a challenge to catch however many pound of carp and F1s using 020 mainline on his pole rigs. Now 020 for me is the middle of summer margin line. Do you know what I mean? I tend to use 016, 018 for where everything else. Margins is 20, and I was like, he's never ever going to be able to do this. It's just crazy. And I watched it and he did it, and then at the end of the video he said himself, he said maybe the main line isn't as important as we tend to think it is. And I kind of agree with that. The most important part of any rig is your hook length, in my opinion. It's the bit that catches the fish basically. So I think line diameter and hook size is more key than actual line diameter on your rig. And if I think about some of the underwater footage that I've seen feeder fishing, I've seen carp come up and physically pick up a feeder, give it a shake to release the contents, and then mop it all up. So I don't think they're necessarily scared of rigs. I think on some of the underwater footage that we see, and they do spook away, it's because there's possibly something else there that they know is a danger signal, or maybe that particular fish has fallen into that trap 3 or 4 times in a short space of time and is now wary of something. Do you know what I mean? It's so hard to know, but I think we get so caught up in line diameters and stuff that we miss the important bit, which is hook diameter basically and hook size. I don't think mainline, especially on pole rigs, is as important as we make out, so I hope that helps. Right then, so this leads in perfectly really to question number 2, which was about elastic ratings for the line sizes that you're using basically. And again, I would always try and match my elastic to the hook length strength that I was using. Okay, if you use a really heavy elastic, the chances are you're going to miss bites because you're not going to have the suppleness in that elastic to connect with the fish properly. You're going to pull the hook out basically, you're going to bump them off. If you're using elastic that's too light and you're hitting into these fish, the fish is just going to scream off, bottom the elastic out and break you off anyway. It's either going to break the elastic or more likely break some part of your rig basically, and you don't want them. So I mean, I'm not going to get into the technical details of this line diameter needs this rating of elastic, because you've got solid elastics, you've got hybrids, and you've got hollows. And to be fair, most of the manufacturers are very, very similar, but they do have quirky little differences, and I don't want to open that can of worms basically. I've used MAP elastic, I've used the Daiwa, I've used Dan's pole elastic, and at the moment I'm using the MIDI reactor core elastic, and those ratings are completely different to anything else out on the market. So I'm not going to open that can of worms and confuse you anymore. All I will say is though, if you're wanting to elasticate a pole, think about the venues that you're fishing on and think about the fish in those venues. Okay, now a mistake a lot of people make is they'll see a match venue and they'll be told, oh yeah, there's carp to 12-15 pound in there, and they'll go and buy 20 elastic thinking that every fish is going to be a 20 pounder, and it's not. You want to look at the average size of fish basically, which in your match lakes tend to be around £2, £3 mark depending on the venue and stuff. So you want an elastic rating that's going to cope with that, but you also want to match up your hook length as well. Okay, and again, as I said, I'm not going to dive deeply into the things because I'll cover this in rigs and venue videos later on in the year when I'm back fishing properly. But just a little bit of thought, the best place to ask really are the people fishing those venues. Just say, look, what line are you using, what elastic have you got in, and just base it on that. Another really, really good source of info is your local tackle shop as well. But generally, rule of thumb, if you're catching 6 to 8 ounce roach, a 6 to 8 elastic, and a 0.10 bottom would be ideal, and just work it up from that basically. I think that the heaviest elastic I've ever used has probably been a 16s, and I use that in the margin. And I tend to fish softer elastics than a lot of other people because I want to be able to hook the fish and then let them get away from all the other fish in that little area, and I just prefer softer elastics all round, to be fair. So I don't really feel I've answered your question properly, but I hope I've given you a little bit of guidance on that one. Okay, so yeah. Right then, so third question was, it was after the hook length swivel video that I did in the tank, and guy messaged me and said, what is the best way to use these hook length swivels? I don't use them on pole rigs. After watching the underwater footage, I might experiment on a couple, but I'm not 100% sure, because on my pole rigs I use 016 mainline regardless really, and even if I'm using a lot lighter bottom, I can tend to get the eye to eye undone anyway, so it's not really a massive issue. I tend to use the hook length swivels on my feeder fishing, and basically I'll attach the little swivel to the main line using either a polymer knot or just with a simple loop. I'll do a figure of 8 loop, thread it through, and just do that if I'm just being especially lazy. 9 times out of 10 though, it'll be the polymer knot. And then simply all you need to do there is pull the little rubber washer up a little bit. It exposes the little link, pop your hook length in there, push the rubber grommet back down, and that hook length isn't going to come off unless you physically move that bit of rubber. Mega simple, dead straightforward. Again, I'm going to show you that on a feeder session that I'm going to be doing very soon, and I can run through the finer details of it then. So yeah, I hope that helps. So what is coming up on the next few videos? Now, as I said, these are videos that I would have loved to have got done, but I just couldn't due to various different reasons. One question I was asked is, could you have a look at meat underwater, and does it make a difference if you've got fatty bits on it, or if it's completely clean, if you've boiled it and it's all the fat's out of it? Does it affect the sink rate, etc.? So I'm going to have a look at that. Another one that came up was fishing bread, particularly bread punch on pole rigs, because we've all seen the underwater footage of fishing popped up bread in winter, fishing bread and bomb, and it pops up. Now this also got me thinking, because I used to dob bread all the time through winter, and it's a deadly method. But does the bread kink up on the pole rig, or does it sink to where you expect it to be, or does it hover? I'm going to try and get that sorted out. The reason that I've not is because so many people use so many different hook styles for dobbing, because primarily you're after the bigger carp, and the hook weight itself could alter the drop rate of the bread, and I'm not entirely sure I want to get that analytical into it, but I'll have a go and see what happens. Another question that popped up was with regards to casters and their sink rate, basically. Now, I've always believed that the lighter the colour, the denser that caster is, and the better it'll sink. But the guy that asked the question said over in the country that he lives in, it's believed that the darker ones fall faster because they're denser. So I'm going to get a tank set up, I'm going to get a pint of casters, sort them all out into roughly the same colour batches, and just see how they sink underwater, basically, because I think that could be quite interesting, because we've got polar opposite ideas of what's going to happen, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I've also just taken delivery of a big box of ground bait. I'm going to be covering some ground bait mixes for you as well. Some for still waters, some for rivers, and some for commercials, because a lot of people use pellets, but I think ground bait is also a fantastic option on commercials, and I'm going to be covering the mixes that I do use, and some that I'm really keen to start using and experimenting with this year, so that is coming soon as well. So yeah, there we go. That was number 30 of 30 days, basically, and I don't know if you can hear the rain, but it's absolutely bucketing down again. So I'm quite glad I can't go fishing, to be honest, because I would not fancy going out in weather like this. But anyway, thank you so much for being part of this journey. I am going to do something similar again, but towards the end of the year, and I'm going to keep that a secret for now, because that is going to be quite something a little bit different, perhaps. But in the meantime, I'm hoping to get tons and tons of fishing done. I'm going to be hitting the rivers, hitting the commercials, doing a lot of natural venue stuff, and basically just exploring new venues and showing you how I go about approaching venues and stuff like that. I've also got the coaching videos to do. I'm also looking up at setting up a potential children's angling club around York, so we can invite youngsters out maybe once a month to a venue that we're going to hire, and give them a taster session for a couple of hours, and just see how that goes. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, that's what it's there for, and I will catch you all later. Cheers.